Hello, fellow followers. This is another episode of Thoughtful Thursdays. I am your host, Adan, the delivery man, and as usual, I have my co-host, Billy Nwanda. Nwanda? Nwanda.
Nwanda.
Nwanda. It's a Texas thing.
It's definitely a Texas thing. Hey everybody, Fearless Billy Nwanda here. As always, the co-pilot and AKA the guy that just hangs out and talks and does other fun stuff. And, I am not making any sense with this rambling. So let's go straight into it. Colorful.
Yes. Colorful. That is actually the name of the movie that we're going to talk about. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, we're going to try and do something a little bit different and add broader themes into what we're talking about. And so I decided that it would be a good idea to integrate the 7 deadly sins. And as I promised last time, today we're going to talk about another of the 7 deadly sins. And as I describe what the movie is about, you will soon realize what this sin is about, or is. So the movie Colorful, okay, if you're interested, go right now, watch the movie, and we'll wait.
Yeah, this is the obligatory. You're going to get spoiled quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give it a couple moments. That way you can go ahead, take your time and, go watch the movie. Go have a drink of coffee. Have a drink of beer. Have a drink of wine. Okay, it's all good. We'll be right there waiting for you.
Yes, we will.
Okay, we're done. Let's go ahead and go straight to it.
Okay, let's go to it. The movie is about this guy who gets a second chance. And what's really interesting, what I really liked about this movie, is that by second chance, I mean a real second chance. Like really, really second chance, as in another chance at life. Mm-hmm. What I thought was really well done in the movie is that in the beginning you just see this person from a first-person perspective, and he's in a line. The individual is in a line, and this other character, which is the guide, he's the the prototypical or the typical guide, tells him that he gets a second chance at life, and so. Now, when we see this, we understand that he's pretty much in the line of judgment. And what is interesting is that you don't hear the voice. You just see written, what the person is saying in writing.
Yeah. It was kind of a very neat stylistic decision because it kind of throws off, along with the way the character acts in the beginning, because they have no memory of who they were before they get plopped into Makoto's body. They have no previous. They're a complete blank slate. So they're starting off with not knowing what to do. Like, of course, in the beginning, all of that soul's dialogue is entirely via writing instead of talking and whatnot, because it would kind of spoil the ending quite a bit.
That's right.
And the director does a lot of masterful steps to kind of make sure that you don't necessarily know who the person is that is inhabiting this kid's soul.
Right.
And it's not like at first you're actually thinking it could take more of a nefarious turn, because dude, the kid and the dude who's the person, the soul that's inhabiting Makoto's body in the beginning is not necessarily an upstanding human being.
No, he's not a nice guy.
Yeah.
And as you said, the steps that the director does is that every time the character wants to get something out of the guide, who happens to be a kid, a child. And I think we can go, in a lot of directions. Because later on, we know something which is critical to the story and towards the ending, related to this guide who he calls an angel, at least in the dub version.
Because in the dub, like, it's he's an angel. Of course, like in a Japanese sense, like, it's more of a spirit guide.
Okay.
Mainly because, like, what we interpret as, like, heaven in the movie, and which is the reason why they had to record, like, you know, Poro being more of an angel.
Mm-hmm.
In Japan, it's more of just a straight-off spirit guide and the spirit world.
Right.
Just because of Japanese beliefs being more based in Zen, Shinto,
exactly,
all that nice little jazz.
Yes.
And also, like, as you get to the end of the film, like, the revelation of the nature of the guide itself is pretty important.
Yes.
You know, and why he, you know, goes out of his way to help, you know, wayward souls reform themselves. But, yeah, we're going a little bit of ahead, you know. Again, like, some of the interesting stuff is the art direction of the film.
Yeah.
Again, like, it's something I keep kind of pointing out, you know, these last 3 films have kind of shown this, where you have, once again, a main character, like, the entire world itself is actually, like, it lives up to the premise, colorful, you know? But again, up until almost the very end of the movie, the main character himself is kind of depicted as being pale, brown, like, kind of, you know, like death.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it kind of also symbolizes the way that he goes about, you know, interacting with, you know, his classmates and interacting with people around him, to where, you know, it takes, like, it's like it continues until he meets the gentleman who becomes his best friend.
That's right.
And that's when he actually starts to kind of, as he fills himself up more with life and comes closer to his revelation at the end of the movie, he actually, you know, changes, his skin tone changes considerably, if you notice.
I did not. That's interesting.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of a neat trick on the part of the director.
Yeah, that's right, because you even noticed, I noticed actually not so much the skin, but the clothes he wears, because first he wears the sneakers, right? Which is the beginning. And then his mother buys him the sweater, because it's apparent, like in the movie, it's going toward the winter months. And so he wears, is it blue?
Yeah.
Or something? But something noticeably colorful. You know, something that you would say, oh yeah, of course, blue. It's one of the primary colors, you know?
And not only that, but if you notice too, he sticks with that sweater to the end of the movie, whereas the sneakers, which he bought in the beginning, like kind of as part of his, like, kind of more superficial makeover, those get robbed from him, which was kind of one of the signs where he has to realize, okay, I'm not on the right path.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. This is not who I really am or should be or can be.
Exactly. So yeah, it's an interesting, like, set. I mean, the thing about Colorful is that even though it has a very fantastical, like, setup in the very beginning, it's very much a film grounded in reality. Other than his interactions with Pura, there's not anything fantastical that goes on in this film. A lot of it is spent with the protagonist making, you know, continually, like, crappy decisions and always being mopey. Of course, a good chunk of it is justified. As you find out in his backstory, I mean, you have a kid who was kind of screwed with and picked on, finds out his mom is cheating on them, you know, his brother is being a complete outcast in the hopes of, you know, getting good grades. So he decides to, you know, like, take his own life as a result.
Yeah, and the girl that he had
a crush
on turns out to be a prostitute?
Pretty much a prostitute.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you know, like, it also kind of reflects upon, like, the extremes that Japanese children have to go upon when it comes to their making choices. You know, the pressure to succeed is just immense over there, you know, and it's one of the reasons why Japan has pretty insanely high suicide rates.
And just look it up, it's insane. It's crazy. I mean, children, 15-year-old children are killing themselves.
Yeah. Even younger than that sometimes.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
And I think this film kind of does a really good job of, like, setting up, like, look, you know, like... Because at the end of the day, it's actually a very positive ending. You know, the main protagonist is given a second chance at the very end. Like, you find out he's actually... He goes through all these trials and tribulations. He tries to rekindle his, you know, he tries to kindle a relationship with his crush. That goes completely south because she just feels like she has to keep on the path that she's on because she feels that, you know, down the line, her beauty's going to disappear. So she's trying to take advantage of it as much as she can right now.
Yep.
And, you know... So that doesn't work out. He finally gets a really close friendship, has to fight to keep that friendship so he can go to the public school he wants to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And you find out that the soul was the kid all along. And that what had happened is that, you know, when the kid killed himself, they gave him another chance. Which is something that a lot of Japanese kids don't get.
That's right.
And I thought was pretty, you know, symbolic in that film.
And even more, equally as symbolic is the guide, the spiritual guide. He was a soul that did not learn his lesson.
Yeah.
And I mean, it can be either female or male. In this case, it's male. But this individual did not learn his lesson. So he, in the end, tells this the guy. What's his name? Makoto, that he's lucky because he can go on and live and form new memories and actually look towards the future.
Yeah.
He cannot. This guide cannot look into the future, and I think that's why he's a child.
Yeah, because he's frozen in time. I mean, the only joy that he can get at this point is helping other souls not make the same mistake he did. And, you know, which I found to be at least a pretty telling deal about the character.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a very interesting journey that Makoto takes throughout the film. And, you know, again, you know, it's like, it's one of those deals where, like, it's very much an indie auteur's project.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you strip away the fantastical setting, you could just make it about kid, like, you know, tried to commit suicide but failed. And him just trying to, once again, find the reasons to live.
Mm-hmm.
You could strip away the fantastical element, and the core of the film would still be fantastic on its own.
Yep.
And it's just one of those deals where it's just, you know... It's one of those animes that's pretty much a... It's a slow burn. It is a anime that is, you know, going to... take you some time to get through. Because, again, this is something that's very much grounded in reality. You're not going to see Home Slice, you know, going through and, like, punching through buildings or anything like that.
That's right.
Like, you could probably make almost a 1-1 transition to live action with this. But, again, you know, like, it still is a pretty fantastic piece of work. You know, especially for the message that it spreads at the end.
Yeah.
But that does bring us to the point of, you know, for you, what sin would this accompany?
Pride.
Pride.
It was pride. Because the messenger tells... Pura tells the guy, Makoto, it's like, you know, be more forgiving. Be more understanding. Because we all make mistakes. Throughout the movie, he has a very pronounced and very strong resentment against his mother, because once he knows that once he knows that his mother had an affair with a flamenco dancer, which I thought was a little bit funny, because flamenco, for those of you who don't know exactly what that is, it's a very passionate type of dance and very passionate type of music. It actually tends to be very tragic it deals with themes of abandonment and forsakenness.
Yeah, and that kind of actually that was probably a deliberate choice if you really think about it, because in a lot of ways she does feel abandoned and forsaken, in that her husband is a salaryman who just like a lot of Japanese salarymen works and works and works and works and works. So he's sitting, and of course, and it initially led to a tragic fate in that she had an affair with this dude. Makoto found out, and it was one of the triggers that caused him to kill himself.
That's right.
But anywho, he does spend a lot of the film being very prideful until the very end, because again, when his soul, he has no memory of himself proper.
That's right.
So when he gets thrust back into his body, it's kind of, I think a good equivalent would be watching Peter Parker under the influence of the black suit in Spider-Man 3.
Yes.
Just kind of very, stupidly dickish behavior.
Yes.
Throughout, a lot of the whole time, he continues to act like a dick towards his mom.
Yeah.
He continues to, he even, threatens the girl with the glasses. Again, we're horrible with names. But he threatens her to scare her off.
Yeah.
And then he tries to, do some type of large gambit to try to win over his crush.
Yes.
Again, just really stupid behavior. But pride makes a major factor into it. And it's not until he learns to let go of that pride that he finally starts to put the pieces back together.
That's right. And so, for those of you to have an idea of what pride means, it means a high or inordinate opinion of one's self, character, merit, or qualifications, either reflected or in the mind, or in actions. So this guy thought of himself like a super person, I'm so much better, therefore, I don't have any friends because they're all stupid. Yeah.
And another really point is that during the whole time that he's like this, one of the main motifs that keeps going back to throughout the film is the art club. And there's a painting that Makoto was working on before his initial death.
That's right.
And he spends most of that film not able to complete it. Because, again, he's acting completely under a different point of view, and he's acting prideful, so he doesn't even really start to embrace his ability to do artwork again until he lets go of that.
What I thought was very interesting, which was, like you said, a masterful play of scenes by the director, is that, in my opinion, I don't think you see a real change in his opinion towards her or his behavior towards his mother until he finally understands and he's convinced that his dad already knows. And his dad, because of his love for the family as a unit, decides to stay with the mother.
Yeah, that is one deal that comes up. It's it's at the kind of the very pivotal moment when they're wanting him to go to a private school, even to the point to where his brother is willing to give up, being able to go to, I think it was medical school, for a year.
Yes, that's right.
He was going to put it off so they could get him into the private school. And their main deal was because, the family was unraveling, but Makoto's, suicide drove them together.
Right.
To where they finally stopped all of their BS and they finally, came together as a family again.
Yeah, came back to reality.
Came back to reality. Stopped the affair with the flamenco instructor and all that nice little stuff. And, it's just one of those deals where, it does seem like it clashes because it's the last bit of selfishness that Makoto is having to engage in, which is the wanting to go to the public high school. But I do think it kind of sets up for a rebuilding of the relationship around his family.
That's right. Because we later know that um, it was the father who decided to get him to go with him fishing, which is something that, to the best of my knowledge, to what I could gather from the movie, it's not something that they did all of the time. It wasn't something that was a regular thing.
Yeah.
Because the father worked so much, and because he knew that his wife had an affair, and that made him even more distant from the family. That gave him even more reason to stay out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah, because pretty much, I mean, anytime that you're dealing with an affair situation, like, and you're the one that's being cheated on, the easiest thing is to glide away from that.
That's right.
And just bury yourself in work or whatever.
Exactly. One of the things that he said, which was to me like the key, was that I don't want you to necessarily forgive your mom, but I want you to understand that she loves you.
Yeah.
And that was it. You can understand a situation, but still with the comprehension that it'll take time to let go or to assimilate it, to really...
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, being hit with something like that at like 15 years old is rough. I was lucky in that, my parents split up when I was still pretty much a little baby.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with them with two separate households. But it was okay, because I was young, I had plenty of time to accumulate to it. But again, for a Japanese, child, like, facing the fact that their family was falling apart.
Exactly.
That's going to make them, like, even if they, like, again, because he got his second chance, initially for those 6 months, like, even being given the second chance, there's still a lot of anger and resentment.
That's right.
About that, because, it's one of those deals. It's the ultimate betrayal. Like, how can you betray your family like that?
Yeah, exactly.
And, something else I did say I wanted to point out, too, is that one of the, another large motif I find in Japanese anime, which, again, is the concept of fishing as a means of bonding.
That's right.
It's kind of, it's a really nice trope, and it's used always very well. It's always a moment where, when you have two main characters that are really wanting to get inside each other's heads and really kind of get along and kind of form that bond, they always go fishing. And then they always have ramen afterwards.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right, because they went... Of course, they went for ramen after that.
Yeah, they went for ramen after that. Yeah. And again, it was telling of the father trying to do everything he could to comfort his son.
Yeah. Because
he pretty much gave him everything in his bowl but the broth.
Yes.
Which that kind of tunes into, kind of the... how a lot of Japanese fathers will try to sacrifice everything for their kids.
Which is another symbol, Food equals myself. My energies, my feelings, my love to you.
Yeah.
That is ramen. And that is, to me, pivotal, like you said, because if that let him, or at least he tried and succeeded in telling him, okay, I know, and I forgive her. I don't expect you to forgive her right now, but I just want you to know that we still love you, both of us. And if I can do this, I hope you can too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really big concept, is forgiveness.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to pull off. Yeah, I mean, it's just go ahead.
The other thing is the letter. When they're in the art club, and there's this letter to himself in the future, when he's talking with his crush, and the crush is talking to him, to Makoto as well, because again, there's this theme of crushing something that is beautiful, which, in this movie we learn that it's life. The meaning that this movie wants to give us is that life is beautiful, and it's not something that should be thrown away.
Yeah.
Be just willy-nilly. Like,
yeah, because towards the end, she kind of has her own revelation that, she's been living very superficially as well. And that, it's, it does suck that eventually beauty will fade, but she's still going to be there no matter what, even when the beauty fades away. And I think that's why, like, Makoto and now of his more enlightened state kind of told her, live.
Yeah.
Stop, live purely for yourself, and don't, think that that the only way you can live is by being, having all the fancy things and all that nice little jazz.
I don't know if it came out in the subbed version, but in the dubbed version, you see throughout the entire dialogue, this subtitles of a letter that it doesn't say who wrote it or to whom it's written, but it seems that Makoto wrote it to himself.
Yeah, actually, like, I watched it up, so I caught that part too.
Okay. Which I thought that was another masterful thing to do.
Yeah.
Because something that I'm really getting annoyed at is this fucking high school thing that animes are doing, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, like, if you guys, like, keep up with the Nevicast lately, our biggest, like, bone du jour is the concept of the high school kid who's either a NEET or an otaku who gets, like, who gets magically killed and then whisked away to a fantasy world to become the hero. And sometimes it's done well, like, ReZero or Konosuba.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time it's just done to annoyance. And that's kind of where we're both at right now. So, seeing something like Colorful where there's no real running away from your problem.
Right.
Which is kind of what happens with a lot of these shows, is that it's all based upon escapism.
Right.
And
exactly.
And again, when it's done right, it's still good, but it's still escapism. You kind of want something that's more meat off the bone. And I think that's where Colorful succeeds more than anything else.
Yes.
By the way, surprise cameo by...
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I mean, so... Yeah, like, it is kind of more of a refreshing deal for high school. It actually kind of gives me really big vibes of GTO.
Yes.
Not as much in the insane Onizuka himself, but more in the fact that you have these kids with real problems that need to, like, figure out the best ways to solve them. Like, the live action was even better about this, I think, than the anime was.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And this is a movie that, like we said before, you will either love it from the very beginning, and you'll appreciate, what it is, and you'll be pleasantly satisfied with the ending, or you will hate it and discard it for, 10 minutes after watching it.
Pretty much, yeah. It is one of those, like, really kind of like it or hate it kind of films,
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is, like, strict, like, indie auteur style. So, if you go in and watch this, just kind of expect that this is not going to be something that's going to be easily digestible. Again, after the first, like, 10-15 minutes of this thing, you're either going to keep going through all the way to the end, or you're just going to turn it off.
Exactly.
And just be, like, blah.
Yeah.
That being said, it is really easy to find off of, again, this is like with a lot of other stuff that we've been doing, this is a Funimation licensed film, and it's not available on their streaming site, but it is pretty easy to purchase. Matter of fact, like, iTunes has it on sale, I think, for like $10 right now. So, yeah, if this is something that's right up your alley, like, this is definitely a film for you.
Yeah. And just as a conclusion, something that I thought was a nice, like, way to tie it in as a circle of events is that in the same way that the guide, Pura Pura, tells him, I missed my chance and this is why I'm doing this, Makoto is being the messenger to his crush. And he's now fulfilling his role as, I messed it up, take it from me, I attempted suicide. Life, if I can find the beauty in life and the colorfulness in life, I'm pretty sure you can too. I hope you can too.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah.
So if you don't have any further comments or
no, I think we are pretty much good to go.
okay,
good sir.
We're good to go. So again, highly recommended. And just to recap, pride was the sin of this episode.
Yes.
And we will see you next time.
Yep, and we'll be continuing the 7 deadly sins for the next few weeks.
That's right.
So thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
And
click like and subscribe.
Click like and subscribe. And good night and good luck, folks.
Good night.
Good night.